Hello ladies, today I'd like to talk about the idea of starting as you mean to go on. This is an old saying that a friend of mine tells me often that she learned when she was growing up, and as it applies to dressing, and especially for homemakers, because it's so tempting to not bother to care for your appearance, because the minute your feet hit the floor, you're off and running and there's so much to do. And one of the things that I tried to teach my children when they were growing up as they were homeschooling is take more time. Don't just jump out of bed and head straight for whatever project they were interested in, but start the day by taking care of your appearance. You're bathing and your dressing your hair and dressing yourself up in your best clothes that you have for daily wear. And this is the way that you mean to go on today. And it's a warm-up. It's like you don't just jump into exercise, you warm up. And it's the same with clothing. It's a warm-up for your mood. It's a warm-up for your day. It's a warm-up for the things that are going to confront you that day. And as you know, homemaking is not a typical, you're not going to have a typical day. You're not going to have everything regulated like perhaps you would at work, where everything is scheduled and everything happens at a certain time. There are so many things that will make your life different. Another thing that someone taught me years ago was to make a list. Now, I have said before I don't like schedules. I just don't like putting the time, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because it's so disappointing when you can't fulfill that. But I make a list, and this list will last me, this might last me a month, because I might not get all of it done in one day. But a list is also important to do it in your best handwriting, on the best piece of paper you can find. There's so many pretty scrap papers, and you might be able to get into your stash that you haven't used, and just make yourself a nice, pretty list. And respect that list. Respect yourself enough to respect that list, and say to yourself, I'm depending on this list. It is part of my goal to live a more organized life, or so that I won't be so forgetful, to have a list. So how does clothing coordinate with all this? Do you know, when you're dressed up, I'm just speaking for myself, because everybody's different, but when I dress up, I have a more respectful attitude towards myself, towards others, towards the home, towards my work. And also, it's a very small thing to do that you can easily change. You can't often change the structure of your house. It's not easy to change some of the messes that you have to clean up. They're not easy, but it is easy to get dressed, and you can wear pretty clothes. Now, I won't wear this scarf probably when I'm working. I'll put an apron on instead. I just put this on for the video. And now, for some of you, you don't have to elongate the step. You do things quite quickly and quite well. For me, there's often other things that need to be done that will interfere with a larger project. So I will write on my list that I need to get that laundry room cleaned up, and I need to move a piece of furniture out of there into another room. But that's been on my list for a few days, and I haven't been able to get at it. So I'm just making the step a little bit longer. It's still there, and I'm still going to do it. And it might happen that I never get it done, but at least I have written it down. It's one of my goals, and I've committed my list to the Lord. I've asked the Lord to help me fulfill that list within His will, and to bless my home with order. And speaking of prayer, this is going to be kind of a rambling video, because I don't have a script to follow, and if I did, I probably wouldn't obey it anyway. But one of the things that people ask for prayer, especially women at home, are, please pray for me that I can be more organized and get my work done and all my obligations, and not just work, because homemaking isn't just work, but to set aside time for proper rest, for proper exercise, and to pay attention to nutrition. It's such a big job. And I knew a lady that had one of those great big 3-ring binders, and she put everything in a plastic sleeve, from nutrition to what her family liked the best, to her recipes that worked, that she enjoyed, to her sizes and goals that she had. She would insert pictures from magazines of things that she'd like to do in her home. And this might be a very enjoyable thing to do. I don't do it. I still am clipping things and sticking them in my notebook. But the other thing about dressing is, if you look at it in a spiritual way, and you start with the Bible, and you see from the very beginning, clothing did concern God. You see from Adam and Eve, he was concerned about clothing. He was concerned about covering, and he was concerned about quality. And all through the Old Testament, I'll just touch on a few high spots. I'm sure you could probably look up the word clothing and find out that in certain cases 30 pieces of clothing was awarded to someone for some reason. And why would you need 30 pieces of clothing? Well, if you'll count the things in your wardrobe, if you cover 4 seasons at home, plus maybe a couple of things that you don't do at home that you need to dress a little differently, you are going to end up with 30 pieces of clothing. I'm sure you could probably count that many. I myself prefer a dress because it's one piece. I get very frustrated with the different pieces of clothing, and I prefer a dress. However, today I'm wearing commercial clothing, and you can find things like that, and I have a picture on my blog, on my current post, of me wearing these 2 pieces of commercial clothing. So you can find commercial clothing that's suitable for the home that you can wear, and don't worry about wearing it out. I know I have letters, people say, but do they last very long? Well, really, would you want your clothes to last a long, long, long time and get bored with them and wear the same thing 20 years later? I do have some clothes that I have saved that have lasted that long, but don't worry about that, because you can always find it. I believe that God takes care of us and makes provision for us, and you can always find something pretty to wear at home, and it'll cheer you up, it'll cheer the children up, it will cheer your husband up. And so also, as we get older, we start, well, even the young need to understand this too. This might be your last day or your last chance with dressing well. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, do we? So every day is such a jewel. It's so valuable. It's so important. So we need to treat it like it was the most special day. Every day at home is just as important as visiting a fancy place or going to somewhere very important. To me, the day at home is just as important, because the Lord is here, the Lord is in your house, and you are communicating with him by what you do, and you're showing your family and others that might peek in or come to the door how you feel about life. And so your clothing tells a message, and it's how you feel about life. So there's also, as you get older, I think it's very important for older women to be dignified in what they wear. Now, as I said before, younger women can walk around in sweatpants and a t-shirt and still look absolutely gorgeous because they've got youth on their side. Well, as you get older, it's very important to be a little bit more polished and not to look worn out and rough. And so clothing is one of the easiest things that you can use to create a softness, to create femininity, to create life, to create happiness. And even though it's temporary, you're going to find there's been a lot of experiments done about this, where people were, told not to dress up or not to bother taking care of their appearance and what kind of day they had. And you might notice that whenever you neglected your appearance, you had an unhappy confrontation with someone, or something happened that was someone was rude to you, or just sort of one thing after another, things started to go downhill. And so today, um, this might not make much sense, but today, if I were your teacher and you were a student and you were sitting here, I would say, okay, your assignment today is to go home, and I'll give you a list of where you can check off a box. I know people make fun of this check off a box, but it's kind of, for some people, they like to have something like that, a little chart or something like that. That I dressed well today, and take care of your appearance before your feet hits the floor if you possibly can. I understand with a family it's difficult, or if you have been ill, it's difficult, but sometime during the day, even if you don't get around till noon, do get your bathe yourself and fix your hair and dress up and look nice, even if you're not going to be seeing anyone, because it gives you dignity. It reflects the feeling that you have for life, and it gives you a sense of self-worth. And for homemakers, many of us are alone a lot of the time. This is something that no education prepares us for, that we are going to maybe face many days by ourselves as our husbands are away, and as your house is empty maybe some of the time. Now, a lot of you can't imagine that if you have small children, but it does happen eventually, and you will have a day every now and then that's all alone. So we have to learn to live with ourselves and to dress up for ourselves and for the Lord, and to to celebrate life. And even if all you're going to do today is write letters, dress up for it, and be an inspiration to a painter. Have you ever seen a painting, any painter who's inspired by someone who doesn't care about themselves? Very rarely. Um, and I'm not saying you'll ever be painted, but uh, dress as though you were uh, in the spotlight, especially for the home. Don't let yourself go, especially as you get older. I hope to do a better job on these videos and to have better messages, and so I am so glad that you have come, and I'm flattered that you'll come and come to my blog, and please leave a comment, because that's where I get some of my ideas. Now, next time I hope to talk more about homemaking and how to keep your interest up, and how to keep house and keep a spiritual connotation to it. So thanks for listening, and please leave a comment. Bye.